If we're talking about painting in the Heian period, we've seen what were called women's pictures and men's pictures. There's also painting in the service of religious experience, which the textbook introduces with esoteric Buddhist art. Let's explore that term a bit. One of the foundational skills of good critical thinking and critical reading is to define your terms, to be really clear on what is the dictionary definition of this term. Esoteric means intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. So when we're talking about esoteric Buddhism in Japan and the art made in service of it, we're talking about two schools, Tendai and Shingon. Schools or sects, right? That's S-E-C-T-S. Always sounds closely like S-E-X, but we're not in Lady Murasaki's world here. So schools of Buddhism that are derived from a more terminology, Tantric Buddhism is one word that you can use. Probably its proper word is Vajrayana. The schools of Buddhism that are developed and practiced in Nepal and Tibet. And Vajrayana means the diamond way. So you learned about Mahayana as the great ox cart, the expansive way. And you learned about Theravada as the way of the elders. And this is the diamond way. And this is a form of Buddhism that has a very rich visual cosmology involved with mystical ideas. And so, for instance, this wonderful sculpture, which is in the Asian Art Museum, is an example of Vajrayana Buddhism and the concept in that system of dakinis, so sort of female presences, female spiritual forces that are skywalkers, not like Luke Skywalker. This came long before Luke Skywalker, who are figures of liberation. And you can see the wheel of the Dharma on the belly there. She's so awesome. And a great deal of this ritual equipment and symbolism. So you get lots of ritual equipment and symbolism, such as the mandala here, which is a means by which the person who is practicing Vajrayana meditative practices can seek. I'm defining mystic for you here because you see how much I am a proponent of being a thinker who precisely defines the terms by which you are thinking. So seeks by contemplation and self-surrender to obtain unity with or absorption into. In Buddhism, we wouldn't speak of the deity. We could speak of the absolute or the ultimate. And in this tradition, the concept of Buddha nature is a way of speaking of ultimate consciousness, that the actual fundamental consciousness that permeates all things is awake and capable of awakening, and our small minds are trapped in delusions, attachments and aversions, and cannot see that. And the metaphor that's often offered is the water and the waves, that we live thinking that our lives are about the waves, but the water itself is not the wave. The water is the water itself and the depth and the quiet of the water. So in this system, this idea of Buddha nature, the true nature of reality, the true nature of the water. This is something that you access by using something like a mandala, which you know already from your study of South Asian art, is a diagram of the cosmos. So this is, in a sense, a diagram of Buddha nature itself. Buddha nature meaning all components of the world are in fact one and are in fact completely awake already. We just don't know it. So the painting as a mandala, as a diagram, is offering a diagram of the principles and causes of awakening, also understood as the facets of Buddha nature, from the viewpoint of Buddha's compassion. So if you could see beyond your ordinary way of seeing, the conventional concepts that trap us in suffering, according to this system, you would see the world through the compassionate eyes of the Buddha, and you could see how awakening happens, and you would be able to perceive the truth of Buddha nature. And this mandala is going to help you do that by showing you at the right the Vajra court, the diamond court, the court of Buddhas that are symbolizing the power to cut through delusion. And at the left, the lotus court, the court of Buddhas that are symbolizing the original purity of all beings. And at the very center, we have Siddhartha Gautama Shakyamuni Buddha, symbolizing the power of accomplishment. We have the court of the 8-petal lotus. We have the Buddhas of the 4 directions. We have guardians and bodhisattvas. We have an entire system. And this might seem like, wow, this is kind of weird. It's wonderful, right? It's wonderful, and it is indeed mysterious and elusive. Hence, it is esoteric, because you wouldn't be looking at this as an ordinary person in an art history class, having your professor explain all these details to you. If you were an adept in the Vajrayana tradition, you would have had years of development as a meditative practitioner. You would have learned a great deal about all these Buddha figures and what they symbolize, and you would use this as an aid to meditation, to transforming your own mind. So even though it's mysterious and elusive and esoteric, I'm making a fun, playful comparison that I hope will create a useful analogy. I, for one, have never seen an atom. Have you? I don't really understand how atoms work, but physicists have created diagrams that show us something about this structure that we call the atom and its movements and how it pulsates with energy. And in a sense, that's what they're doing with the mandala. In fact, it kind of amuses me that it actually looks, right, a little bit like the same kind of a design and organization. And so I'm quoting here the great Vietnamese Zen Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh, such a great man that he was actually nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, if you want to be impressive, that's impressive. And so here's how he is explaining Buddha nature. People usually think that forms are stable and real, but according to the Buddha and modern science, form is made only of empty space. Any mass of matter, whether rock, iron, or wood, is composed of countless atomic and subatomic particles, held together by electromagnetic and nuclear forces. When we look deeply into matter, we can see that it is like a beehive moving at a very great speed. Physicists say that when they enter the world of subatomic particles, they can see that our conceptualized world is an illusion. And Thich Nhat Hanh goes on to say, our fundamental illusion, according to the Buddhist tradition, is that we have a separate self that we need to hold on to and protect and fight for. According to Buddhism, self refers to a permanent, changeless identity. But according to Buddhism, nothing is permanent. And what we normally call a self is made entirely of non-self elements. There is really no such entity as self. So the mandala presents us a tool for loosening our conventional conceptual mind and its idea of a separate self, and actually starting to see interrelatedness and as the structure of Buddha nature, and that as the path of liberation.